Hello and welcome to this video. I've been asked so many times about what is the best way to invest in properties. Is it to do Airbnb or to do rental properties? So I've had so many people asking me about this. I normally have two or three people a week asking, "Oh, what is the best way to actually invest in properties? Or what are the difference between Airbnb and rental properties?" Or what are the pros and cons about it. So in this video, I'm going to explain exactly what are the pros and cons and also what are the difference basically. So if I'm referring to Airbnb here, I'm trying to tell you about service accommodation or holiday let. Okay, so these are the ways we could analyze the deal. So basically what I'm going to do today, basically I'm going to talk you through this so you can see the benefit, the pros and cons, and then you can make an informed decision on what basis you want to transform your investment properties. So what I'd like to start with Airbnb. So what is the definition of Airbnb? Or let's say service accommodation. Okay, so what is Airbnb? Airbnb is a short-term rental marketplace where people rent out their properties or rooms to travelers, weekenders, tourists, contractors, and so on. Okay, the returns are generally higher as compared to long-term traditional buy-to-let rental property. But you're renting the properties to guests and to strangers that may trash your property out. So in a nutshell, that's what Airbnb is. Okay, Airbnb is that platform that allows you to do this. But the main focus here is service accommodation. Okay, service accommodation. People use Airbnb as a word because Airbnb is one of the most famous platform that allows you to put your property there to attract travelers. Okay, but service accommodation, the process by which an investor would acquire an apartment or a house, right, and set that house up as a mini type big boutique hotel to attract tourists, travelers, event goers, or contractors to stay in these properties in short-term basis, meaning they don't really rent in the property, they only stay in there for a couple of days or two, or say 3 days, until they finish visiting that area or town. Then they hand the property back to you. So basically it's like a hotel without the on-site staff. That's what service accommodation is. But so people have these dilemmas. Some people want to use their properties as Airbnb. So I want to explain that sort of pros and cons here. So with Airbnb, you have to have the location right. Okay, you want to invest in an area where you know there is a tourist attraction, right? The people want to visit that town or city, or resort. So the location is key when it comes to Airbnb or service accommodation. If you don't get the location right, you may struggle to actually attract guests to your property. The second advantage also is tenancy right. If you're doing Airbnb, you don't have to worry about tenants. Okay, there's no issue with tenant there because you're not renting the property long term. You're giving it to guests that are staying for a couple of days or few days, and then they're gone as well. They have no tenancy right for your property. When their checkout reaches and if they haven't moved out, you can send your cleaner in. Your cleaner will let themselves in and then start cleaning. So obviously, I've got no choice but to leave. So you've got that sort of a sort of advantage if you were to do service accommodation or Airbnb. And also access, you have 24 hours access to the property. Okay, you don't have to seek possession, you don't have to book an appointment to go and view the property. You don't really need to do that because obviously the guests are only there for a couple of days or so, and then you can go and see the property, you can visit, you can see what's happening with it. And also, without having tenants in the property, also you can use the property for a personal use. Suppose you want to go on a holiday in where your property is, you can use that property as a holiday property to stay with you and your family. And then obviously you can then put it back on as a service accommodation or Airbnb and make ridiculous amount of money out of it. And obviously repairs, if there's any issue with the properties, when your cleaners goes in to clean, or when your cleaners goes into clean, they will tell you what the issues are, and then you have the opportunity to actually fix it before it becomes worse. Again, it reduces the expense should something goes wrong. Okay, And then obviously the benefit with service accommodation also, you have the housekeeping, you got the cleaner going there regularly, looking after the property, ensuring it's clean and tidied and it smells nice, it's attractive to people who wants to stay there. And also one of the other benefits also, basically there's less wears and tears, because there's no constant stay of people in the property, like families with children, for example. There's less tears and wears, meaning you don't really have to worry about someone knocking down a door or breaking a stair or things like that. So basically it saves you all that time and effort, okay, that you would have actually incurred to actually fix it, okay. The other benefit also for Airbnb properties, you can make ridiculous amount of money out of it. Okay, you guests are paying in the UK. Guests are paying anywhere from £50 per night to about £500 per night. You do the maths. If you rent a property a whole month or 50% of the time, you're making ridiculous amount of money, and the returns could be anywhere from 10,000 to about £30,000 a year. Yes, you've got that right. The returns are absolutely amazing, so you can make ridiculous amount of money out of this. And also there's a tax benefit when you do service accommodation or Airbnb, because obviously the section 21 rules doesn't impact the service accommodation property market. If you do your figures right and if you check all the boxes, you are exempt from section 24. And again, let me give you an example. Suppose you have an Airbnb property, right, and your net profit, this is worst case scenario, is £10,000, and your mortgage interest is £6,000, right, you're able to deduct that expense from your gross rental income. So if you take the £6,000 off the £10,000, you have an income before tax of £4,000. Again, if you're a higher taxpayer, and you're at 40% tax rate, the only tax you would pay for getting that profit is £1,600. Again, you can see then you pay less tax if you were to have service accommodation, because obviously the mortgage interest is tax deductible. Okay, and I'll give you a similar example once we start looking at the property rental side of things. Again, you can deduct tax and you can deduct so many expenses from having a service accommodation property. So there's huge benefit there that you can take advantage of. So let's look at the disadvantages then of having Airbnb. The disadvantage of having a Airbnb or service accommodation is that you require high initial setup cost. Okay, so you have to furnish the property, you have to decorate it nicely. In some occasions you have to get interior designers in to literally decorate the house, make sure it's spot on, is better than any other properties in the area. So again, that requires lots of money. It requires anywhere from £2,000 to about £15,000. I've seen people spend £20,000 in setting up their service accommodation. Again, that's another disadvantage there. If you're only starting out, you haven't got that money to actually spend. But however, you could do it at a minimal, so you can target your target market. Okay, the second disadvantage is basically having an Airbnb is a hospitality business. It's not a real estate business, unless if you automate the process, or you get a management agent to manage the property for you. But you will need to learn how to meet the guest expectation and to ensure your guests are happy when they are in the property or when they visited the property. So when they have any sort of issues, you've got someone there to help resolve the prop issues. Not physically there, but you need to have someone who's always at present to help if there's anybody who needs help. So again, it's a hospitality thing rather than a real estate sort of thing. But if you automate it, again, it will become a passive income. And the third disadvantage is basically the income fluctuates. Sometimes you have high occupancy rates, meaning you've got lots of people in 1 month, and then the other month it may be significantly low because obviously seasonal effect and all that sort of thing. So basically with Airbnb, your income is not steady. It fluctuates, it goes up and down, and then obviously that then impacts your profit margin. But overall, looking at it, you make more money right, doing the actual Airbnb thing than if you were to do rental properties, because obviously you make money during the peak time, and then when it slows down, obviously you will amend your occupancy rate or your rate accordingly. Depending on the area or the town or city that you're investing, you need to adhere to rules and regulations. Again, each council is different. Some council allows you to ask you to have a permit, or you need to apply for a permit for you to be able to do service accommodation there. And again, work with your local council or local authorities to understand what's required there. And then also with Airbnb, it's like a part-time job, because obviously you need to attend to guest inquiries, you need to communicate with your guest, you need to communicate with the cleaners, and obviously you need to be constantly updating your rate as well, especially if you're not using any software that updates your rate in regular basis. So again, it takes about an hour or two a week to actually be able to manage your service accommodation. Again, if you work with me, we normally automate everything, so it doesn't really take you time that much time to get the Airbnb working and make it become a real estate investment rather than hospitality business. And again, you might need to let your lenders know if you're doing service accommodation, because they may ask you to pay different interest rates. So very important for you to let your lenders know, as well as your insurance company, to make sure that you are covered. So these are the cons when it comes to investing in Airbnb. So now let's look at the buy-to-let property market. Okay, let's look at the buy-to-rental property. So let's define it first. What is buy-to-let? Buy-to-let is a property which is purchased to let out in order to produce passive rental return and income stream. Okay, with buy-to-let, basically the advantage of buy-to-let, if you bought the property, you don't need to set it up, right? That expensive. People are renting buy-to-let properties without any furniture, so you don't have to buy any furniture. You don't have to paint and decorate. You don't have to buy white goods, etc., etc. So it is at your discretion, really, to what sort of equipment you need to live in the property for the tenant who will be moving in. You don't have to do any of those. But again, comparing it to Airbnb is literally nothing. So there's no setup cost there. And then obviously you have a steady stream of income, meaning you rent that property to one family and they pay your rent every single month. It is predictable. You know how much your net cash flow is going to be every month. And you know that it's sustainable. If they're there for about a year or two, you know within the next 12 months, your income is steady, it's not going to fluctuate. That is the reassurance you get when you do long-term rental. And then obviously you don't need to worry about seasonal fluctuations as well, because obviously you've got the customers there, you've got the clients there, they're there for the next 12 months. You don't have to deal with clients in daily basis, because you would have rented that property out to a family. And then this sort of investment is completely passive as well. You can literally do the property up, put it up for rental, and get an agent to manage it without any of your involvement. So basically you can leave it at rent, you can travel the world, you can do whatever you want to do. You don't have to physically get involved to make the actual money come to you. And the other benefit also for long-term rental is you don't pay the bills. Okay, so you rent the property, just the properties, the tenant pay their bills. So basically you don't have to worry about not paying your bills or forgetting to set a direct debit to pay your council tax and all that sort of thing. So that's got nothing to do with you. The tenant pays all the bills. And also you can also get landlord insurance to cover any tenant damages. If anything goes wrong with the tenancy agreement, you've got insurance that will protect you and cover you should there be any damages. Okay, so now let's look at the cons. What are the disadvantages of actually having a rental property? Number one, basically, as I said earlier on, the rental income is really low, significantly low compared to Airbnb, because obviously in average a buy-to-let property makes you about £4,000 to £6,000 in net cash flow every year, whereas for a service accommodation property or Airbnb property, you're making anywhere from £10,000 to £30,000, depending on the location and the sort of property. So there's lots of money to be made when it comes to service accommodation. The second disadvantage of having a rental property, basically, you are tied up in an agreement. You're tied up in a tenancy agreement, i.e., you cannot change your mind and basically do it a service accommodation straight away, because obviously you've got tenants there. If they're in a contract, you have to wait until the tenancy expires before you change it. And also, they may not decide to move out when the tenancy expires, and you may have difficulties to evict them as well. So again, that's another disadvantage. Once the tenants are in, sometimes it's very difficult, especially with the UK law, to evict tenant from your property. And obviously, if there are any repairs and maintenance, it can be slow to be resolved as well, for two reasons. One, the tenant may not tell you what the issues are with the property. Some of them just sit on it, wait until it becomes worse before they tell you. Or even if they tell you, you have to find a time to book an appointment with them, arrange that with the builder and all that sort of thing. So basically, sometimes it takes very long time for you to be able to resolve any issues that goes wrong with your buy-to-let property. So again, that's another disadvantage, which could cost you a bit more money. You could also attract bad tenant, right? You may have ticked all the boxes, but for somehow you got the wrong tenant in the property. It could be someone who would trash your property, who would hog it, would never want to go out, and would never want to pay your rent as well. So these are some of the things you could actually face when you are actually renting your property long term. And again, the tax benefit on renting the property out is significantly less, especially if you are buying it in your name. If the property is in your name, obviously the interest is not tax deductible anymore, because the Section 24 has come into effect, and you will not be able to deduct your mortgage interest as an expense because of the tax rule. Again, I'll give another example. Suppose you bought this property in your name, and you have a profit of £10,000, right? And your interest is £6,000. In mortgage interest, £6,000. You will not be able to deduct that mortgage interest. Okay. However, if you are a 40% taxpayer, you're able to get 20% tax credit on it. Right, so how this calculation works, basically, so what would have happened from your £10,000 you get as a rental income, or your net profit, you've got 40% tax to pay on that, right? So that then gives you about 4,000 it's £4,000 tax to pay. So what you then do, you get the 20% tax credit. So you then deduct the 20% from the £4,000, which is 1,200. That then gives you a tax liability of £2,800 to pay to the government. As you can see, comparing to service accommodation, which get you lots of money, you pay less tax. In the example, £10,000 each. For service accommodation, you only pay £1,600 tax. For buy-to-let properties, you pay a whopping £2,800 tax. Again, it's not tax efficient, especially if you bought that property under your name. Again, these are the reasons why people are leaning towards service accommodation. As you can see, service accommodation is a very good way to make your money works a lot harder. I love this strategy, and I do this strategy as well, but at the same time I diversify as well. I do have other properties that are buy-to-let properties, but if you don't have enough money and you want to squeeze the juice from your investment properties, I recommend, or I suggest, you try Airbnb and see how it works. Again, seek legal and professional advice before you get into it. Get a mentor, a coach who can guide you along the way to ensure you make the most out of it. But I tell you now, if you do it with the right mindset, the right mentor, the right coach, it would be one of the best investments you would ever make in your life, because it will generate you ridiculous amount of money that would allow you to use to buy more properties and do exactly the same thing. I really hope this video has been helpful. If this video has been helpful, don't forget to hit the like button below, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more of these amazing tutorials. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to sharing the next video.